Why is Jerry Seinfeld so funny? He's the co-creator and co-writer of the eponymous smash hit, Seinfeld, which is claimed to have the top television episode of all time, as rated by TV Guide. He made $267 million in 1998, a Guinness World Record, and 10 years later, he was still pulling in a cool $85 million per year, just in royalties. By almost any measure of wealth, popularity, and critical acclaim, Jerry Seinfeld is among the most successful comedians of his generation. And nearly all of it rests on one simple thing: his ability to write a joke. But how exactly does he do it?
Maybe you don't have to be so funny. I mean, would it kill you not to be so funny all the time? That's all I'm asking.
By the time Seinfeld was 25 years old, he had already broken into many of New York's most prestigious comedy clubs. And his next step after that was breaking through in Los Angeles, which was considered the country's top comedy hotspot back then. But when Seinfeld visited one of the top clubs in Los Angeles, the owner refused to book him. She told Seinfeld, "You need somebody to step on you, and I'm gonna be that person." This comment lit a fire in him that would keep burning for 42 years. At the time, Seinfeld was only writing 3 days a week. But inspired by the legendary comedian George Burns, who self-reported in his book that he wrote every single day for at least 2 hours, Seinfeld made a vow to adopt this habit. Seinfeld realized that in order to be successful, he had to be prolific. And in order to be prolific, he had to write a lot. In fact, Seinfeld has written almost every single day since 1975, which is over 16,000 days of writing. Today, the Seinfeld recipe for good writing is as simple as this: 100% focus, no distractions, and write every day. He was once asked why his TV show was so well written, and he said that in most TV shows, the writers spend roughly half their time working on the show and then the other half dealing with personalities, political dramas, and the hierarchical issues that come with making something creative. Seinfeld and his co-writer Larry David, they did the opposite. They spent 99% of their time writing, just the two of them, with the door closed, because they wanted to ignore the outside world so that they could devote their attention to making the show funny. Whenever I hear an anecdote like this, I ask, what was it that allowed Seinfeld to write a lot? How did he actually discipline himself? And his answer is to treat yourself like a baby. Be gentle with your ego, don't get frustrated, and just let what comes naturally flow onto the page. This is what Seinfeld calls the free play creative phase.
So I have two phases. There is the free play creative phase, and then there is the polish and construction phase.
And by the way, if you want to fill hundreds of pads of paper with your writing, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I regularly post videos with tips and tricks on becoming a better writer. If you struggle to put ideas on the page, even in this free-flowing phase, just look to your daily life. Seinfeld says that you should become an observer, pay attention to what resonates with you. Ask questions like, what do you find funny? And don't worry too much about what others will think, at least at the beginning.
I know you think people are going to be interested in this, but they're not.
The magic of Seinfeld's comedy lies in its relatability. His jokes emerge from observations of completely mundane experiences that he just finds to be ridiculous.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
So we go into NBC, we tell them I got an idea for a show about nothing.
Exactly.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
And once he finds that ridiculous but hilarious idea, he puts it onto the page in what becomes a huge jumbled mess, at least at the beginning. But then how does he actually turn that first draft into the kinds of jokes that made him famous?
Comedy writing is something you don't see people doing. It's a secretive thing. I've never shown anybody this stuff.
Seinfeld says that writing and editing are separate activities that engage different parts of the brain. And Seinfeld treats himself like a baby during the first phase, but then, like a chameleon, he adopts a different personality during the polish and construction and editing phase.
The key to writing, to being a good writer, is to treat yourself like a baby, very extremely nurturing and loving, and then switch over to Lou Gossett in Officer and a Gentleman. And just be a harsh prick, ball-busting son of a bitch about that is just not good enough. That's got to come out.
In the editing phase, he becomes a quasi-tyrant, a skeptical figure who gives himself permission to say, you know what? My work isn't good enough, and I'm going to refine it until it is. Seinfeld explained to fellow comedian Mark Norman that if you force yourself to stare at an unfinished joke for long enough, your brain is just going to be forced to finish it.
He had this great thing about writing, because nobody likes to write. It's a pain in the ass, it sucks. But he said, if you turn the music off, turn the TV off, put the phone away, and just stare at an idea you think is funny, your brain will get so miserable that it'll have to crack the code on it.
And from Seinfeld, we learn the principle of create first, edit second, and never do them at the same time. You see, before he even thinks about setting foot on stage to test out jokes, Seinfeld meticulously runs through them in his mind and on paper, rewriting, removing, and reorganizing them to find ways to link ideas together and make them funny too.
So now I'm looking for the connective tissue that gives me the really tight, smooth link, like a jigsaw puzzle link. And if it's too long, if it's just a split second too long, you will shave letters off of words. You count syllables, to get it just, it's more like songwriting.
We're talking about process here because it's not just about finishing one joke. If you're going to become a successful writer, you're going to need consistency over time. And though the story may be apocryphal, legend has it that Seinfeld tells aspiring writers to print a yearly calendar to hang up on their wall. Every time they write, they fill in the square for that day with an X. And over time, those X's will form a chain. Your only task as a writer is to not break the chain.
And I do remember the very first time I did it, and I remember that I was up the entire night because I never felt that good before, and I had terrible acne. I think I was about 18, and it all just went away, and I became a world famous comedian. That's my story. That's the entire story of my life.
And if you're interested in hearing about another legendary artist's writing technique, check out my video on how to take notes like Kendrick Lamar.